Why is Antichrist Turkey able to get away with its atrocities against Christians without much scrutiny? Turkey has largely evaded direct legal accountability for historical genocides, relying on a deeply entrenched, state-sponsored policy of denial. While international recognition and legal campaigns for justice continue, modern Turkey pivots to demanding accountability from other nations regarding their actions in regional conflicts. 1. The Armenian Genocide, 1915–1916, the Atrocities. During the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, an estimated 1.5 million Armenians were systematically killed or deported by the Ottoman government. The legal stance: the Republic of Turkey is the recognized legal successor to the Ottoman Empire. However, successive Turkish governments have maintained a century-long policy of denial, fiercely lobbying against international recognition. Lack of reparations/accountability. Turkey has never formally paid reparations or acknowledged the atrocities as genocide, arguing that the deaths were a result of wartime conditions and inter-communal violence. Global pushback: over 30 countries globally formally recognize the Armenian Genocide. Scholars and international lawyers frequently push Turkey to address the historical record, often pointing to Germany's Luxemburg Accord as a model for historical reconciliation and redress. 2. Modern human rights and regional allegations. The modern connection between Turkey and the genocide of Armenians in Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, centers on Turkey's active diplomatic, military, and logistical backing of Azerbaijan during the 2020 war and the subsequent 2023 ethnic cleansing of the region's indigenous Armenian population. Scholars and human rights organizations argue this fits into a long-standing historical continuity. The genocidal jihads in Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh. The 2020 war, Turkey provided crucial military support to Azerbaijan during the 44-day war, including supplying drones, military advisors, and transported mercenaries. This conflict resulted in heavy casualties and the loss of significant Armenian territories in Artsakh. The 2023 blockade and exodus. Following a 9-month blockade of the Lakan corridor that starved the region of food and medical supplies, Azerbaijan launched a swift offensive in September 2023. This forced the entire indigenous Armenian population, over 100,000 people, to flee into Armenia. International and legal perspectives. Genocide declarations. In 2023, former International Criminal Court Chief Prosecutor Luis Moreno Ocampo, along with human rights organizations like the Lemkin Institute for the Prevention of Genocide, formally classified the starvation and subsequent displacement of Artsakh's Armenians as an act of genocide.
So, Azerbaijan took the leaders of Nagorno-Karabakh and put them in jail, cutting the head of the community. Exactly the method used in 1915 by the Turks. They killed first the elite. And that's why keeping them on jail is continuing the genocide. So the Armenians are global, and that's why they have a chance, because the Tigray, for instance, are in Ethiopia. No one will take care of them. Armenians are different, so Armenians could not just help to save Armenians will help to save civilization.
Cultural erasure. Observers point to cultural genocide in the region, noting that Armenian religious, historical, and cultural heritage sites in Artsakh are being systematically destroyed, looted, or reclassified to erase the millennia-old Armenian presence. The genocidal jihads in northern Ethiopia, since 2020. There are currently no formal international accountability mechanisms, sanctions, or international court proceedings holding Turkey legally responsible for genocide in Ethiopia. While reports from human rights organizations highlight credible evidence of Ethiopia committing genocidal acts and using starvation tactics during the 2020 to 2022 Tigray genocidal war, Turkey's involvement has been scrutinized strictly at a geopolitical and military supply level rather than direct perpetration. Turkey's role and the ongoing calls for accountability involve the following key elements. Drone sales and civilian casualties. During the genocidal Tigray war, the fascist Oromo Islamic regime of Ethiopian used armed drones purchased from Turkey. Human rights groups have accused Antichrist Turkey of complicity by supplying these aerial weapons, alleging they were used in targeted strikes that killed civilians and destroyed vital infrastructure like hospitals. Lack of direct prosecutions. Under international law, proving legal culpability for genocide requires establishing genocidal intent. Supplying weapons to a state that later commits atrocities typically falls under the category of potential complicity, but there is no precedent for the International Court of Justice, ICJ, or the International Criminal Court, ICC, prosecuting a foreign arms supplier for genocide unless the supplier had direct control over the forces committing the crimes. State and institutional responses. The international community has largely focused on broader diplomatic negotiations rather than punitive actions against foreign arms suppliers. Independent UN bodies and watchdog organizations like Genocide Watch continue to advocate for charging state actors in international courts, but formal cases against either the genocidal regime of Ethiopia or its arms suppliers have yet to materialize. To the contrary, the world is doing everything possible to save the fascist Oromo-Islamic regime of Ethiopia. The Kurdish conflict. Turkish authorities have faced severe criticism and legal scrutiny over human rights violations and civilian casualties in the country's southeastern regions and in northern Syria. Yazidi genocide complicity. In 2022, prominent international rights lawyers produced a report recommending that Turkey face the International Court of Justice over allegations that officials turned a blind eye or provided logistical training to groups that committed genocide against the Yazidis in Iraq. 3. Turkey's stance on modern genocides. Israel-Gaza ICJ case, reversing its traditional diplomatic isolation regarding the term genocide, Turkey has taken a highly active stance in the modern arena. Turkey officially submitted a declaration to intervene and joined South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the ICJ over the war in Gaza. Arrest warrants. The Turkish judicial and parliamentary apparatus has repeatedly condemned Israel's actions and issued calls and warrants accusing top Israeli officials of crimes against humanity. Don't let Turkey get away with another genocide. The truth is, the world was never so kind towards Germany and Japan, and they are perpetually and constantly reminded of the atrocities that they have committed against mankind. And these countries have also apologized and paid compensation for the damages that they've done to several ethnic groups that they have victimized in the past. But Turkey seems to get away with everything. Until now, many Turkish nationalists are blatantly denying the historic atrocities that they've committed against the Armenians and Assyrians whom they call Mesopotamians. No one ever forced them to apologize nor pay compensation to their victims. The question is, why is that? Why is no international body able to force Antichrist Turkey in doing what Germany and Japan did? Sadly, the reason is, the current world is already under the sway of the Antichrist or a spirit of Antichrist. The union of Ishmael and Esau that is shaking the world continues. People of the flesh are united in persecuting those of the spirit.
From the law, the prophets, the poets, and the New Testament, the location of this final empire is the same. All scriptural evidence points to modern-day Turkey and a revival of the former Ottoman Empire, which was the Islamic Caliphate or Islamic State. Prophecies describe the Antichrist's empire as being a neighbor of Israel, north of Israel, and from the former Assyrian Empire. Ezekiel pinpoints it as Magog. John the Apostle in Revelation wrote that it would be the empire to hold Jerusalem after Rome. All these tell the same narrative and pinpoint the same location. Daniel chapter 8 may tell us the next prophetic event that will occur and reaffirms Turkey as the location of the capital of the Antichrist's empire.